What's going on, everyone? Coach Aaron here, back in another video. Today we're going to talk all about the best shoes for bench press so you can hit those PRs on the platform. So let's get started. Alrighty everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in to another video. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Aaron Kamesi and I am a Powerlifting athlete, coach, meet director, and referee. So I'm putting out videos here on this channel to help people in those categories with whatever knowledge I can provide. Today's topic is all about the shoes for the bench press. In a previous video, I went over and broke everything down as far as shoes for the squat. And so now we're moving on to the bench press, and then in the future, I'll do a video on deadlift to finish off the series. Okay, so if you haven't checked out that video on the squat, I'll put the little card for it above and a link for it in the description below, and you can always go and watch that one after checking this one out. But today we're going to talk all about the bench press, as some of the things are similar to the squat, but there are some key differences that affect what kind of shoes you can use for the bench press versus the squat. So one of the key points in bench press and an IPF affiliate is that your feet have to be flat on the ground the entire time. In some other federations, you can have the heels up, and so some lifters like to just be on the toes and have the heels up, and they just need a shoe that has the good enough grip to keep the toes on the ground. But for an IPF affiliate like us here in USA Powerlifting, USAPL, the feet must be flat on the ground. So that's going to affect a little bit the type of shoe you can use, because there's certain types of shoes like a heeled shoe that will give you benefit in that area. Then the other point that I mentioned is that you want good grip, because we are focusing on pushing horizontally and not necessarily vertically. Depending on the carpet may be good grip, or it might be not so good grip. So you want a shoe possibly with good grip if you do have slipping issues, to make sure you're gripping that carpet very well, and when you're pushing horizontally, your feet don't slip out underneath you, because then you lose your base. All right, so first point we'll go over is, like I said, the heeled shoe will give you a little bit of benefit when it comes to maintaining your feet flat on the ground. If you're someone who has issues with keeping the heels down, or if you're someone who wants to keep the feet as far back as possible while staying within the rules of keeping the feet flat on the ground. So the heeled shoe is going to give you that raised heel, as we discussed in the squat video. In this one, there's a 3/4 inch difference between the front and the back. And so now you can get your feet farther back. And even though technically your heels are up in the air, your heels are on this raised heel, and then the shoe is flat on the ground. So it's going to let you get a little bit further back. And if there's someone who has ankle range of motion issues, and maybe you feel like you can't get all the way down to the ground, and you don't want to use the blocks because the blocks oftentimes can slip, then this can also be beneficial for someone like that. So they can at least get their feet down to the ground, even if they're not going super far back. All right, so if you're trying to maximize how far back your feet are, or be able to get a little bit more ankle range of motion in your bench press, then the heeled shoe is going to be better off than the flat shoe. Also, a benefit for the heeled shoe over many flat shoes is kind of a warning to you lifters out there, if you've maybe experienced it before in a meet or seen someone else experience it, is part of the rule of the feet being flat on the ground is as flat as the shoe allows. So if the shoe has a natural bend in it, and maybe the shoe is up a little bit in the front, then that's considered still flat on the ground. The referee's not going to call you on that. On the back end, it gets a little bit iffy, because you're kind of relying on the referee to know whether the back of your shoe bends up like some do, or whether it's meant to be flat like here. And so some of the referees may keep their hands up and not let you start the bench press, and then you have to rack the bar or try and adjust your feet or something like that. Or maybe your heel actually is up and it's very difficult to kind of feel it and stuff like that when the shoe is already bending up in the back and forcing you up. So just a little warning out there to you lifters, if you do have that issue, or if you look at your shoe and you see it has a natural bend up in the back, or maybe the sole kind of comes up into the back of the shoe, is you have to be a little bit careful with that. It's a little bit risky depending on what referees you have in the chair, what angle they're looking at. They may call that as your feet aren't flat on the ground. But with the heeled shoe, as you can see, it's basically completely straight. There's no bends in the back, and then there's very little bend in the front. Okay, so when this shoe is flat on the ground, it's flat on the ground. You're never gonna get called for it unless you are actually bending one side up or the other side up, or maybe the back up. And then that means you legit don't have your feet flat on the ground and you need to make the adjustment. But if your foot is flat on the ground with this shoe, it is staying flat. You're not gonna get called for it. So that's a little bit of advantage for the heeled shoe if you do have that issue. Like I said, there are some flat shoes that don't have that issue, and so you can keep your feet flat on the ground. So it just depends on what type of flat shoe you're using. Next point would be a scenario that only covers some of you, and that would be the transitioning from squat over to bench press. If you are someone who doesn't wear knee sleeves, or maybe you have knee wraps on if you're competing equipped, or you can take your knee sleeves off while keeping your shoe on, then it could be a little bit easier transition going from squat to bench press because you don't have to change everything. You don't have to wear one shoe for squat, one shoe for bench, one shoe for deadlift. You can just keep the shoe that you're wearing on for squat if you squat in a heeled shoe, and then go over to bench press and bench press in the heeled shoe. So as far as that transition, if you are wearing the same shoe for squat and bench press, then obviously the heeled shoe is beneficial. If for some reason you are wearing the flat shoe for squat because you like it, and you're wearing a flat shoe for bench press because you like it, then in that case it'd be either transition for the flat shoe. And then there may actually be a benefit if you are someone who is transitioning from bench press to deadlift and you are wearing the same shoe for bench press that you're going to wear for deadlift. Like let's say you have this wrestling shoe, you like wearing it for bench press because it's nice and flat down to the ground, has good grip, and then you like wearing that same shoe for deadlift, then obviously that would make it easier transition for bench over to deadlift. It's kind of one less thing to worry about, except that if you don't have your long socks on for deadlift, you still have to take the shoe off after bench press to put the long socks on and get ready for deadlift. Or if you just have the long socks on from squat, bench, and deadlift, then you already have your shoe on when you transfer over from bench press to deadlift. And obviously if you're someone who's doing push-pull, then the squat doesn't really matter. And if you're someone who's doing bench only, then the squat and deadlift don't really matter. It's just a little bit of scenario depending on your specific situation and what shoe you wear for each discipline. One of the benefits I see to flat shoes is oftentimes they can have a better grip. As I said earlier, sometimes at competitions the carpet is good, it's very grippy. Other times it's not so good. It depends on what type of carpet they use. Sometimes a thicker carpet can be easier to dig down and grip in it, and a thinner carpet can be a little more slippery, especially after some sessions or days where a lot of chalk and sweat and baby powder builds up on there. Especially the baby powder can make it a little bit more slippery. So for some people that do wear the heeled shoe, the bottom shoe doesn't really have a big difference as far as the tread with lots of bumps and stuff. It has smaller amounts. So if these smaller amounts kind of wear off over time, or if you get baby powder in there, then it can become a little bit more slippery. So you have to be careful about that and make sure you're really cleaning it, and then being careful of what the carpet of the platform is like. But with the flat shoe, oftentimes you can get some that are much better grip. They're going to have a little bit more tread on there, and the rubber might be a little bit easier to clean off and be able to get a fresh grip on there without any baby powder or anything like that. But even then, some flat shoes like this wrestling shoe are very similar to the Olympic weightlifting shoe, and so you're going to run into some of the same issues. So another option in the category of flat shoes is then you can go to something like a running shoe or a CrossFit shoe or something like that that's going to have more tread on it and be grippier. So you get the benefit of it being a better grip, and especially some of those running shoes or trainers can really have these big pointy treads on them that can grip down into it. And also some of them will naturally have a little bit of a raised heel, so you're getting something between the flat that's 0 and maybe the heeled shoe that's 3/4. Maybe you're getting something that's like 1/4 of an inch raised heel, just to give you that little bit extra of a raised heel to get the feet further back, but still having better grip than the wrestling shoe or the weightlifting shoe to make sure you're not slipping at all when you're really trying to push horizontally on that carpet. As an example, you can go look at Jennifer Thompson, who's arguably the best bench presser in the world, male or female, and you can see she wears some type of running shoe that gives her a little bit of a heel and then gives her a really good grip, since she really focuses on leg drive with her bench press. All right, and then some of the other benefits for a flat shoe are similar to the ones I went over in the squat. One, for example, will be that the flat shoes in general are cheaper than the heeled shoes. So like I said previously in the squat video, you might be able to find some type of flat shoe on the lower end of $10, $15, and even on the higher end you find $60, $80, or $100, and find a good flat shoe that you can use to benefit you for the bench press, and maybe even use it for deadlift as well if you like doing both of them with the flat shoe. Whereas with the heeled shoe, you may find some on the lower end of $100 or $125, but a lot of them get into that $150 to $200 range. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive. And if you're not using a heeled shoe for squat, you may find it a little bit too expensive to spend $200 just for one shoe for bench press. Another point that I mentioned in a previous video is that you're just going to have more options in general. So as I've said before, there's only a few brands that make the heeled shoe, and then usually they only have one model or maybe two models. So you may only have 5 to 10 different options that you can choose from, and especially they have to figure out whether it's a color you like or have your size and all that kind of stuff. Whereas with the flat shoe, you have a ton of options, especially when you start opening it up into, like I said, those running shoes, CrossFit shoes, some kind of cross trainers, where you may not use those shoes for the squat because they're going to have the softer sole and it's not going to be as stable. You don't need that for bench press, because in the bench press, you're not trying to stabilize yourself in the vertical direction and really try and push force down straight into the ground. You're going to be stable on the bench press with your butt and your shoulders and your head, and you're going to be focused a little bit more on the horizontal force. So you don't really need to have a really hard sole with the bench press. So that opens you up to a lot more options as a flat shoe. Even though, like I said, some of them might have a slight raised heel, we can consider them flat shoes. And so you have a huge range of different brands and different options to pick from, whether, like I said, running shoe, CrossFit shoe, wrestling shoe, indoor soccer shoe, any indoor sport, basically basketball shoes could be used for the bench press if you like a flat shoe. Also, like the previous video point, is that you're going to have more options that you can test out in person. So you can go to a Sports Authority or a Dick's Sporting Goods or even Walmart or any kind of shoe store. You're going to find lots of different flat options there for these different sports, and you can test them out and see how the grip feels, see how your foot feels in it, get the right size, everything like that. Versus the heeled shoe, you're going to have little to no in-person options to actually go test it out. So again, you're taking a little bit of a risk because you have to go buy it online and you have to figure out your size and how the grip is going to be just from hearing word of mouth from maybe other people at a powerlifting competition or whatever reviews you see online. All right, so it's a little bit of it depends on what type of bench style you are using and then which features you're trying to take advantage of for you specifically. What I've kind of noticed is that a lot of my lifters have enough hip extension range of motion and enough ankle range of motion to be able to get into their bench setup with a nice big arch and be able to get their feet flat on the ground with a flat shoe. They don't need the benefit of the raised heel of the heeled shoe. Part of that is just because I tend to coach more female lifters than male lifters, so they tend to be more flexible. They can get in this bigger arch and get their feet down exactly where they want or test out different options. Versus some people that maybe coach some bigger guys, they may not have as much range of motion in their hips, especially after a heavy squat, and maybe they can't get their feet all the way down to the ground. They maybe have a tendency of kind of lifting their heels up, and they may benefit from the heeled shoe. But personally, for myself and my lifters, I like the flat shoe because they can get their feet farther down to the ground, put their hips more in extension so their butt doesn't come off the bench. They have a lot more options to pick from, a lot cheaper options to pick from, and better options for getting good grip, since some of the platforms like the Alico carpet, I'm not necessarily a fan of, and it can be a little slippery. So getting some kind of flat shoe with better tread on it, or even like a running shoe with really good tread on it, can help really dig into that carpet and hold their position so they can maintain, like I said, that base of support. But hopefully that helped you out. Like I said, if you haven't seen the squat video for the best shoes for the squat, you can go check that out. Cards above, links in the description below. I will make the one for deadlift soon, and then you can then figure out the best shoe for you for squat, bench press, and deadlift. If you want to learn more bench press tips, I have a bench playlist. I'll put the card for that as well above and in the description below, so you can go learn more bench tips if you want to. And as always, do that YouTube stuff if you want to help me out. If you liked the video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. If you have a friend that is looking into what shoe they want for bench press, or maybe they had issues at their last competition with their heels coming up, then you can send them this video to help them out. You can subscribe to the channel to see more videos as I put them out. I try and put out as many as I can between Monday and Friday when I'm not as focused on my coaching, since I do more of my coaching emails over the weekend. But other than that, I hope you're having a good week, and I'll catch you next time.